Hello everyone, welcome to a new video, and today we're going to make a quick look or a quick tutorial on how to effectively launch and use space planes. Space planes are by definition everything that has wings that flies into space and goes back down. You can even say that the space shuttle is in essence a space plane. Now, this is something that I have built, cobbled together from several mods. The plane itself, by the way, if you're looking for mods for airplanes, then the wings are from the OPT, or Orbital Plane Tech, if I'm not correct, mod, and the cockpit is from Aero Quiz or Aero Tech mod that adds lots of new cockpits to the game that are modeled after fighter planes, fourth generation, fifth generation, stuff like that. So if you're looking into it, so this is something that I've cobbled together. It resembles the space shuttle. However, this is by far not the way you want to launch a space plane, and I will show you in a second why. Um, you know what? Let's go launch this in its fullest. Let's just go add some clamps. Oh, it can only attach this. Okay, so something like this. Add these guys over here. And God help us. Because, oh, this thing also. Let's go. And there we are. Ready to launch our... Wow, this is so not... This is so not equalized. It's going to go so bad. Okay, let's do this. 3, 2, 1. And this launches surprisingly well. And I will also tell you why. This is because these things... And there we go. There. You seen it? Now it's gonna go bananas. Now let's see. Well, it actually somehow kinda works. Oh boy. Damn. And we spun out of control. You see, this is why. We have some sort of probability to change this, but as you can see, the vehicle is just way too unstable. And this is what happens. This is why you shouldn't do this. Now let's go back into the VAB and figure out why what happened. Why does the space shuttle idea as a whole is very inherently unstable? So we are now back at the VAB, and we want to know what the hell just happened. So the thing is that these guys are so extremely powerful. They're so big and so extremely powerful that their main thrust lines up with the center of the tank, and they are so powerful that they carry this with them. And essentially we only need just a slight push to equalize out. But once I take these guys out of the equation, then check what happens. The center of thrust is over here, and the center of mass is over here. So the center of thrust is going to go over here. Yes, but the center of mass is over here. So what it will eventually do, just like it did, was go around it and around and around and around. This is why when you're building a shuttle, you will mostly see people doing something like this. They'll be aiming their engines, their main thrust, so that it will somewhere align in the center of mass to prevent that rolling and that spinning out of control that you have just seen. However, what it does do is it makes this plane wholly unfit to fly in atmosphere, because once it comes back from space, uh, essentially you cannot operate an engine that is within this angle. It will make your plane unstable to fly in atmosphere and also unstable to fly in space. Once this giant fuel tank gets separated, this engine is effectively uncontrollable. It won't push you forward, it will push you to down and will make you spin again. So how can we solve this? Well, the solution, yeah, let's go. The solution is rather simple. And that is to place the plane at the center of the rocket that we are using. The center of mass, center of thrust, and center of not gravity, of lift. That's not important right now even. As you can see, it is equalized and it is straight. One of the reasons to do something like this, by the way, is reusability. You can use a plane, reuse this stage, while this plane, say, has a hangar that fires off satellites once it's in a position or in a high orbit. Then this also goes down, and this gets recovered, and this gets recovered, and essentially you've recovered about 90% of your vehicle. So in career mode, using space planes for these kinds of purposes is actually very economical. Let me show you how this thing works. By the way, before that, two mods that I also like to mention, and by the way, none of the mods that I'm using is changing the physics, the aerodynamics, anything in the game like that. Most of my mods are either informational or informal or informative, sorry, or that they are parts mod to create cool planes like this. So one of the mods, this is Kerbal Simulator. It allows you to simulate your craft in different situations. So for instance, I want to know how this reacts or this behaves in orbit. I can select the orbit, altitude. Here is Kerbin. I can also select any other planet that I want. I can also select it from either the launch pad or the runway just to simulate how it goes. Now, if this uh, explodes or gets destroyed somehow, I'm not financially viable to pay for it because I didn't build it. I didn't launch it. Okay, I just ran a simulation and it showed me that it's not going to work well. Okay, so this is one mod, and the other mod that I'm using is stage recovery. What it does is, like I said, informative, shows me green means that this entire thing is going to get recovered. Yellow means that my plane, if it uses only parachutes, will come down at a speed of 6.5 meters per second, which will probably recover 99.41 if I am not flying the plane. I am flying the plane, so I will recover 100% of it. But for instance, for this stage, that once I separate it, I am no longer in control of this stage. I know that it will land at 5.1 meters per second, which will allow us to recover 100% of it. This is why I said it is very economical, because I am essentially, other than say the satellite that I am launching or the payload that I am launching, I am recovering 100, almost 100% of the craft that I build, and it is very economical. And this mod shows me exactly how many parachutes to put on my vehicles so as to not uh, make a overburden or not make the craft heavier than it should with additional parachutes. It shows me exactly what I need to place on the vehicle in order for it to be fully recovered, and it's a lot less guesswork than what used to be back in vanilla, where you just placed your parachutes and it burned off in the atmosphere, and you just had to go back and place more parachutes until you guessed the number of parachutes that you need. Until you guessed it right, and then you went with it. So these are two mods that I quickly mentioned. Now let's go launch this and see how it goes. Okay, so let's give it a try. 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna give it a slight nudge. This, by the way, this tilt that you've seen me do is actually helpful for rockets that have a problem lifting off. If you have a rocket that is heavy and has very close to 1.0 thrust weight ratio, if you want it to be a lot easier for it to lift off, just give it a little nudge in any direction, a little tilt, and it will be a lot easier for him because of the change in the gravitic forces that are placed on the rocket. I believe, I don't know the physics explanation for this, only I know is that it works. So this is something for you to consider when you are building your own rockets, by the way. And this also works both in KSP1 and KSP2, such as this design as well works in KSP1 and KSP2, because these are both the same. The mechanics of those two games are essentially the same. We're going to try and lift off to about 20-25 kilometers and even out horizontally to try and get as much further from KSC as we can. There. With a lot less atmospheric pressure, this thing can fly a lot better. Let's get. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And I thought it might happen, and it did. You can build a better rocket than what I built, so this is something to keep in mind when you're building your own rockets. However, we are in space. So there you go. This is how you should bring a spaceplane into orbit in your games, and this is why you should definitely not go through the NASA design for the space shuttle, but go through this design instead. There's absolutely no reason to build a space shuttle as NASA built it in Kerbal space program. It's much too tired and tedious, and a lot more tweaking with the thrust limiters and the angles and everything. So it's a lot of work essentially for nothing. Once you build and launch your planes like I did right now, you will see you have absolutely no reason to build a shuttle the way NASA built it, unless it's a sort of a personal challenge for you and you feel obligated to try. Trust me, it won't work. So anyways, this is it. By the way, our plane is going to reach 195 kilometers. From this height, you can launch a rocket, a small rocket with a satellite on it with very limited fuel capacity, and it will be really easy for that satellite to equalize and orbit Kerbin, essentially. You can build a rocket and fuel and satellite for about 1,000 credits, even less, and launch it from this height, and it will be enough for that satellite to equalize around Kerbin. Also, if you're trying to bring something from space and you want a more gentle reentry, wider bodies that go through the atmosphere have generally smoother reentry. Smoother reentry essentially translates to lower g-forces that are being pressed against the vehicle. So if you have anything that is worthy and fragile that you want to get back from orbit, then you can use the space plane to get it. And that's it, essentially. So this is the tutorial on how to launch a space plane correctly. Launch and launch and subscribe. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Tell me in the comments if you want more content like this, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.